Now let's go through the loyalty feature. This is probably one of the most important features that we offer just because of how important it is to small businesses. The reality is, it's 5 times more expensive to acquire a new customer than it is to retain an existing one. So, a big part of your pitch to a small business when you're trying to offer them this mobile solution is really to ensure that you incorporate this aspect of keeping their loyal customers happy and wanting to come back and staying engaged with the business. Another thing that we've found is that 20% of your customer base tends to make up 80% of your revenue. Now, of course, those numbers are going to vary depending on the industry that you're working in, but it's a pretty good indicator that it's important that you take care of those loyal customers who keep coming back. So let's offer them some sort of reward or loyalty or some sort of incentive to get them to stay really, really happy and engaged with your business over your competitors. So setting this up is pretty straightforward. This is a great example. This is Mission Avenue Bar and Grill. They actually set up this loyalty program and then leveraged it to target their happiest customers and ask them for reviews of their business. And that's something that you would find in another one of our videos and help desk articles on the reviews campaign specifically. But in reality, this loyalty feature was the driving force. So it was really essential. There's a number of different ways to set this up. Remember that this logic is largely based off of a stamp card. So you would either receive a reward for a specific action or a certain number of visits equal a specific quantitative reward. So here's a few examples. I love this one. We set up a stamp loyalty. It takes only one stamp to unlock the reward. And this loyalty program cannot be repeated. Now, the way that we phrased this was download this new app and receive 10% off your check on your next visit. So the idea is you can only utilize this once, and it's a great way to encourage people to download the app for the first time. So it can't be repeated. Some of their other loyalty programs incorporated, or rather I should say they spoke to their different customer base. So Mission Avenue, they actually have this amazing draft beer selection. They've got amazing food, whiskey, wine, and cocktails. So they're really focused on the bar scene. So in general, what we found was, okay, let's make a stamp reward, maybe 5 stamps. You can select how they're chosen. So in this case, we did the QR code. In other words, the customer would actually open up their phone. When they try to stamp it, they'll be presented with the camera in their phone, and then the server would actually show them a QR code that was specifically printed out by you or the business owner. As the customer scans that code, that's how they get rewarded with the actual stamp. You can set all sorts of different precautions in place. So, for example, if you're worried about people maybe trying to take advantage of the system, you can say, all right, you cannot get more than 2 stamps within 12 hours. You can add GPS for validation. So this actually works with the contact feature in your application. Meaning, if your contact feature has this Mission Ave location set, then you can decide, okay, they have to physically be within 1 mile of the address in the app for it to actually function. Of course, you can also set a custom time zone. You can apply time limits if it's maybe a special promotion that ends after the holiday weekend. The push notes reward is great. Essentially, it says, if you accept the push notifications for our application, we're going to show you how grateful we are by getting you started with your first stamp. Now, the actual content itself, of course, is important too. It's important that you come up with a program that makes sense and speaks to the customers. So in this case, we did 50% off whiskey. The description is just an option, of course, to add a little bit more of an explanation of how you earn 50% off one of your whiskey items. And then terms of service, totally optional, but definitely a good thing to put if you have specific, needs that the customer needs to adhere to. And then these are just a few other items. You can determine the way that the actual system looks. The best thing to do here is, of course, play around with it, save your changes, and then always preview the app. Now, These are all set up as Stamps loyalty. There's also something called the tiered loyalty, and I want to show you another example in a different app that I created. Tiered loyalty is really a way to accrue a certain number of points, and then you can decide, okay, I've got maybe 200 points in my app wallet here. I can either spend them on a big ticket item, or maybe I can get a bunch of smaller items instead. So in this particular example, after you get 2 points, you get a free churro, 4 points, you get a free taco, 10, you get a free enchilada plate. Now remember, this doesn't have to specifically relate to food or restaurants. That's just these two examples. I like to use this advanced loyalty system. I see it a lot in barbershops and salons, for example. So maybe if you have 60 points, you would get a free shampoo, and maybe 100 points, you'd get, a blowout, and then perhaps, 200 points, you've been a really loyal customer for a long time, you get the full deal, maybe it's a free haircut or 50% off your haircut. It has to be some sort of incentive that makes sense, that makes the customer want to stay engaged. So in general, it's pretty straightforward to set up. There are a lot of different options. So as always, give it a shot, continue previewing it, and just make sure that you're working closely with your client to offer the customer something that's really fun and exciting and gets them wanting to come back.